Welcome to Occult Archives,
Aye.
where we uncover the mysteries, myths, and legends behind history's most feared books.
All right.
From mystical grimoires to ancient religious texts, these books carry secrets too dangerous to be read.
Right.
Are you ready to turn the pages of the unknown?
Let's go.
This is Season 1, Episode 12.
Oh, wow.
Vetāla-pañca.
Okay.
Let's dive in.
All right.
Today we're embarking on a deep dive into a really fascinating text, the Vetala Pancha Vimshatih,
Okay.
which translates to 25 Tales of a Vetala.
Yeah.
And what's really intriguing is our source today.
Yeah.
It's a 1949 second edition,
Yep.
retold by Dr. S.N. Shastri and Pthv Kocher.
Interesting.
And get this, it was actually prescribed as a textbook by the University of Delhi.
Oh, wow.
I mean, stories of ghostly beings on a university syllabus.
Yeah.
That tells you something about their cultural and literary weight.
It certainly does.
Yeah.
You don't often find tales of ghouls and riddle-solving kings assigned alongside your more traditional academic fare.
Right.
So for our listener, our mission today is to unpack exactly what makes this collection so compelling.
Okay.
We're going to explore the nature of these stories, the clever frame narrative that binds them all together,
Yeah.
and maybe even discover why these figures, a persistent king and a spirit inhabiting a corpse,
Right.
have captivated imaginations for centuries and become such a prominent part of Indian folklore.
Yeah.
You know, knowing your interest in those aha moments, I suspect the unique way these stories are structured and the insights woven into them
Yeah.
might just spark a few for you.
Okay, so let's dive into this frame story.
Yeah.
Because it's a wild ride in itself.
Okay.
We're introduced to a king called Trivikramasena,
Okay.
though later on we find out he's actually the renowned king Vikramaditya.
Got it.
Now, for 10 whole years, a monk visits this king every single day, bringing him a gift of fruit.
Interesting. 10 years. What could be the purpose? What's the point of that daily offering for so many years?
Exactly. And our king, being no fool, eventually gets a bit suspicious of these constant fruity gifts.
Yeah, of course.
So he does a little investigating
Yeah.
and uncovers a rather dazzling secret.
Oh.
These fruits are actually hiding precious gems inside.
That's...
Naturally, this makes him question the monk's real intentions.
Yeah. What's he really up to?
Right.
You'd think he'd just be upfront about the gems, but instead he throws a curveball.
Yeah.
And asks the king for a favor, a specific task that requires the king himself to be involved.
Interesting.
It's a classic storytelling move, right?
Yeah.
The delayed reveal keeps you hooked
Yeah.
and sets the stage for the main action.
Absolutely. The monk requests to meet him at a burning ground.
Okay.
Talk about an eerie setting.
Yeah.
Specifically on the 14th day of the dark half of the month.
Okay.
And not until midnight.
Okay.
So that paints a pretty spooky picture.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, burning grounds or cremation grounds
Right.
often hold a significant place in spiritual traditions, seen as these in-between spaces between life and death,
Okay.
which makes them a really potent backdrop for supernatural encounters.
It's not your typical palace intrigue.
Yeah.
This setting's important, too. A burning ground at the dead of night on the darkest part of the lunar cycle.
Yeah.
It immediately signals we're entering a realm of the supernatural
Yeah.
and gives us a hint about the kind of entity the monk might be mixed up with.
You got it.
Right.
Despite this rather unsettling request,
Yeah.
the king agrees. He heads to the spooky location, finds the monk, and then gets this rather macabre task to bring back the corpse of a man hanging from a tree.
Oh, wow.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
When the king touches the corpse, he realizes it's no ordinary dead body.
Oh.
It's inhabited by Vetala.
Okay.
And while our text calls it a kind of ghoul,
Right.
in Indian folklore, a Vetala is a more complex being, a spirit that animates corpses.
Okay.
They're not just mindless monsters.
Go.
They often have their own agendas and a real knack for testing humans with tricky questions.
Interesting.
And the king's reaction to this, he laughs.
He laughs. That's unexpected.
You'd think discovering you're carrying a corpse possessed by a spirit would be cause for panic, not amusement.
Yeah.
But the king, unfazed by this rather bizarre development,
Right.
proceeds with the monk's errand and slings the corpse over his shoulder for the journey back.
Oh, wow. So it's during this walk back that the 25 tales actually unfold
Right.
to alleviate the
Yeah.
boredom of being a possessed corpse on someone's shoulders, I guess.
Yeah.
The Vetala decides to entertain the king by narrating a story.
Okay.
But of course, there's a catch.
Yeah.
There's always a catch with these supernatural types.
Right.
At the conclusion of each tale, the Vetala turns the tables and poses a question to the king.
Oh.
And here's the rather high stakes.
Mm-hmm.
If the king can't provide a correct answer,
Yeah.
the Vetala threatens to shatter his head into 1,000 pieces.
So not exactly a gentle request for the answer.
No, not at all. It's a brilliant narrative device, really. That thread hanging over the king's head not only raises the stakes for him within the story,
Right.
but also keeps you, the listener, on the edge of your seat. It really underscores the value of wisdom and the ability to discern the truth hidden within these intricate tales.
And remarkably, the king manages to come up with a fitting answer to each of the Vetala's perplexing riddles.
Oh, wow.
However, the moment he speaks, the Vetala pulls a classic supernatural disappearing act.
Yeah?
Vanishing from his shoulder and reappearing back on the tree.
Oh, no.
This forces the king to go through the whole arduous process of retrieving the corpse all over again.
Wow.
This cycle incredibly repeats 24 times.
Vetala is relentless.
Talk about persistence on both sides.
But the king's unwavering determination to complete the monk's task despite this supernatural torment is truly remarkable.
Right.
It really highlights his heroic nature, his commitment, even in the face of the bizarre and the threatening.
Exactly. And these 24 stories, along with a 25th one that involves some particularly naughty issues of family relationships through marriage,
Okay.
are the very tales that the Vetala narrates to the king during these repeated journeys.
So that's the frame story that sets the stage for this entire collection.
Yeah.
But let's delve into why this collection came to be and why it's structured the way it is.
Okay.
The text itself gives us some fascinating clues about its origins and its popularity.
Yeah.
It explicitly states that this work is an attempt to retell a selection of stories
Right.
drawn from the much larger Kathā-sarit-sāgara,
Okay.
which is this massive 11th century collection of Indian folk tales.
Oh, wow.
So the 25 tales we're looking at are essentially a carefully chosen excerpt
Okay.
from a much broader storytelling tradition.
Got it.
And what really stands out is that the text emphasizes how incredibly popular this specific cycle of the Vetala Pancha Vimshatih became.
Really?
It says it became so widespread that it actually integrated itself into the very fabric of folklore in the country. That speaks volumes about its cultural resonance and its ability to captivate audiences across centuries.
Yeah.
For you thinking about the kind of stories that really stick,
Yeah.
this level of integration into folklore shows just how powerful these narratives must have been.
And for those who might be curious about the original source material,
Yeah.
the text notes that in Somadeva Buddha's original Sanskrit version,
Right.
within the Kathā-sarit-sāgara,
Right.
there aren't just 25 tales in this Vetala cycle, but actually 33.
Oh, wow.
And each of those extra 8 also concludes with a question for the listener, or in that case, the king within that larger narrative.
So our 1949 edition is presenting a slightly condensed, though still quite substantial version.
Got it. And here's a detail that really underscores the academic angle of our edition.
Yeah.
The retellers, Dr. Shastri and Kocher, made a conscious effort in their language.
Okay.
They mention that these stories are adapted and presented in a way that reflects as much as possible the original Sanskrit, and they specifically highlight that the collection showcases a variety of styles of Sanskrit composition.
Right.
They point out 3 popular styles: the straightforward Panchali, the more elaborate Gaudi, and the predominantly used Vaidarbhi form.
Like different periods in English literature.
Think of it a bit like different styles or periods in English literature,
Oh.
each with its own characteristic sentence structure and vocabulary.
Okay.
The simple Panchali might be more direct and to the point, while the Gaudi could be more ornate and descriptive.
So this detail really shines a light on the educational purpose of this particular edition,
Yeah,
especially given that it was used as a university textbook.
right.
By exposing students to these different Sanskrit styles within the context of engaging narratives,
Mm-hmm.
the retellers hoped that learners would develop an appreciation for their nuances
Right.
and be inspired to delve deeper into the world of classical Sanskrit literature.
That's a really clever way to make language learning more engaging, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, you're not just memorizing grammar. You're experiencing the beauty and variety of the language through compelling stories.
Absolutely. And it wasn't solely about linguistic study either.
Yeah.
The original author, Somadeva, actually believed that regular readers of these Vetala stories
Yeah.
would, through the grace of the Hindu god Siva, achieve great enlightenment.
So there was a belief that they contained deeper wisdom, perhaps moral or philosophical lessons,
Right.
that could lead to a greater understanding of oneself and the world.
Yeah.
The very act of grappling with the Vetala's challenging questions could be seen as a form of mental and even spiritual exercise.
Now, to give you a little flavor of the kinds of dilemmas these tales present,
Okay.
let's take a quick peek at the table of contents, which gives us the titles of the first 8 stories.
Okay.
First, we have Mandarvati Katha, or the story of Mandarvati.
Okay.
This one centers around a prince who faces a really crucial decision concerning a woman who is possessed by a celestial being.
A prince having to make a judgment about someone influenced by a divine entity. Sounds like a story ripe with intrigue. And maybe some tough moral choices.
Next up, we have Shukadurga Katha, the story of Shukadurga.
Okay.
This one involves a king and queen and poses a seemingly simple yet potentially very complex question. Who between the two of them deserves to be praised?
You might initially think it's straightforward,
Right.
but perhaps the story delves into the subtle differences between outward actions and inner motivations.
Yeah.
Forcing the king in the story told to our King Vikramaditya
Right.
to make a nuanced judgment.
The third tale is Harasvamika, the story of Harasvami.
Okay.
This one puts a knowledgeable man in a rather unenviable position. He has to choose between 2 women.
It's the classic love triangle,
Right.
but with an added layer of intellectual consideration.
Yeah, what kind of knowledge does Harasvami possess that informs his decision?
Right. What qualities are truly valued in relationships?
The fourth story is Sarvashilaka, the story of Sarvashila. This one features a king and seems to delve into themes of loyalty and the potentially misleading nature of appearances.
Stories that explore the gap between how things seem and how they truly are can be incredibly compelling.
Yeah. What outward signs might suggest loyalty and what hidden motivations might be lurking beneath the surface.
Right.
Then we have Dharmadvajaka, the story of Dharmadvaja.
Yeah.
This title, which could suggest someone who upholds righteousness,
Right.
hints that this tale might explore complex relationships and perhaps even hidden identities.
Hidden identities and tangled relationships.
Right.
Always fertile ground for storytelling.
Yeah. What secrets will be brought to light in Dharmadvaja's story, and how will they impact the characters involved?
Exactly.
The sixth tale is Yashavhana Katha, the story of Yashavhana.
Okay.
This one presents a dilemma concerning a minister and his loyalty.
In stories like this, it's often not a simple choice between right and wrong, but rather a conflict between competing loyalties or duties.
Right. The consequences of a minister's actions can have far-reaching effects on the entire kingdom.
Yeah.
So the stakes are often very high.
Right.
The seventh story listed is Vinsmama Katha, the story of Vyuswami.
Okay.
This one involves a merchant and seems to center on tests of both knowledge and character.
Testing someone's knowledge and character is a classic motif in folklore.
Right.
Often used to reveal their true worth.
Yeah.
A merchant facing such tests might involve themes of honesty, fairness, and the wisdom gained through trade and experience.
Finally, the eighth story we see is Candravati Katha, the story of Candravati,
Okay.
which deals with a woman facing a difficult decision regarding marriage.
A woman facing a difficult marriage choice can lead to incredibly compelling narratives
Yeah.
that explore themes of agency, societal constraints, and the courage to defy expectations.
Right.
Candravati's story could offer fascinating insights into the lives and challenges faced by women in that era.
Beyond these initial tales,
Yeah.
the table of contents also mentions concluding remarks. Vetāla-pañca-vimśatik-Tales. Okay.
Which translates to the accomplishment of the Vetala.
The accomplishment of the Vetala.
Right.
So that implies there was a larger purpose behind the monk's initial request and the Vetala's subsequent storytelling.
Yeah, after enduring 25 challenging tales and riddles, this conclusion must hold some pretty significant revelations.
The king's trials were not without a specific goal in mind, and that perhaps both the supernatural entity and the ascetic had a greater plan unfolding.
And lastly, we also see a listing of other works by Dr. Surendra Natha Shastri,
Oh,
one of the people who retold these tales for this edition.
okay.
And this list of his other scholarly works really underscores his deep immersion in Sanskrit literature
Right.
and provides important context for his expertise in presenting these ancient narratives.
So seeing the range of Dr. Shastri's work truly solidifies the academic foundation of this particular edition.
Yeah, he wasn't just casually recounting old stories. He was a dedicated scholar, deeply engaged with the rich traditions of Sanskrit literature,
Right.
bringing his expertise to this retelling.
We also find a section titled Copies Can Be Had Of, followed by a list of specific booksellers in Delhi, Pune, and Indore City,
Okay.
where you could actually purchase this very book back in 1949.
Wow, like a little time capsule.
It's a small detail, but it provides a really tangible connection to the book's historical context
Yeah.
and its accessibility to students and readers at that time.
It's a wonderful little glimpse into the past.
Right.
Imagining students in different Indian cities heading to these specific shops to pick up their copy of the Vetāla Tales for their university studies.
Yeah, it really grounds the academic aspect in a specific time and place.
It does.
So as you can see, this collection of 25 tales, all woven together by the persistent king Trivikramasena and the enigmatic Vetala, offers an incredibly rich tapestry of narrative. It explores these timeless themes of loyalty, wisdom,
Yeah.
the complexities of human relationships, and even the very nature of truth itself,
Right.
all through these perplexing questions posed at the end of each story.
And the fact that the University of Delhi prescribed this text really highlights its enduring significance in understanding Indian literature and folklore.
What's truly fascinating for you to consider is how this ancient text, which was also intended as a tool for learning Sanskrit,
Right.
stands as such a compelling example of storytelling that continues to captivate and resonate across centuries.
The very structure itself.
Yeah.
A human king repeatedly encountering a supernatural being through the power of narrative and intellect.
Right.
Facing these challenging riddles with the threat of death hanging over him
Yeah.
is a remarkably powerful framework for exploring profound moral and intellectual puzzles.
That's a fantastic point.
This really raises an important question for you.
Yeah.
What does the enduring appeal of such stories where a mortal king constantly engages with and is challenged by a supernatural entity through the medium of narrative and intellect?
Right.
Tell us about the fundamental human need to grapple with the unknown and to constantly test the limits of our own understanding.
That's a great question, one that really makes you think about why these stories have lasted so long.
And on that note,
Yeah.
we encourage you, our listener, to delve even further into the captivating world of the Vetala Pancha Vimshatih,
Right.
perhaps exploring the original Kathā-sarit-sāgara, or even seeking out modern interpretations of these timeless tales
Yeah.
could offer even more layers of insight into these truly remarkable stories.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive,
Thanks for listening.
and we'll see you next time on Occult Archives.
Bye.